Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
The two.
That's just the two. It works. Yeah. So, Beetlejuice. We finally, after 36 years, a sequel I never thought was going to happen ever is finally upon us. I grew up on this film, as most people did. This is a very nostalgic film for many people. This has got to be one of the most beloved films ever, even though it only has like a 7.5 on IMDb, which is kind of crazy to me, the original.
Yeah, so many people love it.
I don't know anyone who doesn't love it, but, you know, it is what it is. But this is kind of a sequel that we all wondered, would it ever happen? Would Michael Keaton return? Winona Ryder, you know? And, yeah, here we are. It was kind of surreal, you know, when it started up. We were like, sitting there, and I was looking at it, and it, you know, has some kind of nostalgia opening, and you're like, this is happening. This is actually like legit. So this is a project I've been following forever, all the way, you know, reading about the Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian script and all that stuff, and it finally being here, it is surreal. So let's talk about it. We've actually seen a Beetlejuice Part 2, pretty wild, and so as far as the plot synopsis goes, you know, the patriarch of the family has passed on, and they return home to, you know, for his funeral. Yeah. And something happens. I'm not going to say what, but Beetlejuice has to be called in for help. That's it. That's all I can really say. Now, Winona Ryder returns as Lydia Dietz. Catherine O'Hara returns as Delia. And we got newcomers, Jenna Ortega, and plenty of others. You know, Willem Dafoe is in this, Monica Bellucci.
Danny DeVito for a moment.
So, yeah. So I want to say this. When it comes to legacy sequels, you can go one or two ways about it. You can either do your own thing, or you can try to play to the nostalgia. This film tries to do a bit of both, but more on the side of doing its own thing, where it sprinkles in bits of nostalgia. And that's going to be hit or miss for some people. Some people are going to want a trip down memory lane, where everything seems very familiar to them. And then there's going to be others that want their, you know, this to feel like it's its own, that it can stand on its own 2 feet. And for me, this one is definitely the latter. It feels like a totally new film, but that has flavors of the world set up in the original. I was a big fan of this. I'm very happy to say that. This is the kind of film that you're terrified of disliking. Yes. Because you wait so long for it. And it's not going to please everyone, of course, as is the case with any film, but especially one of this magnitude when it comes to the desire to like it, having waited and having loved the original film for so long. I have such a deep attachment to the film, as do so many. I'm not unique in that way. This is a beloved film by so many. I'm just one of those many that grew up on it, watching it endlessly. Now, it is somewhat special to me, more so than most, when it comes to the fact that Lydia Dietz was like the crush of crushes for me, and so much so that I was like, that's the girl that I want to marry. And we ended up getting married dressed as Beetlejuice and Lydia, so I actually fulfilled that goal in my life. But yeah, this was a big win for me. There is some rushed areas, mostly in the third act, but nothing unsatisfying, nothing that leaves where it's like, okay, that didn't, you know, resolve itself. Right. It just resolves itself quickly. And that can feel a little underwhelming, but I was never not entertained. And what'd you think?
Yeah, I loved it. I had so much fun. I thought that the humor really landed for me. Everything, it was very funny. I know we were both really big fans of the horror aspect as well. I think you had even said it's more horror than the original, which was fun to see.
Surprising amount of horror.
Yeah. Really good stuff. I think that like the tone and everything though, is very complimentary to the first film. Like, it would be really nice to watch these back to back, and I think that the humor and the scares and everything, they line up really well. Loved everyone's performance. Winona Ryder does a great job. Of course, Jenna Ortega is wonderful, and I really liked the relationship between Lydia and her daughter. I liked that arc quite a bit. Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of fun. I really had a blast, and I do think that the only like complaint, and it's not even a complaint because, as you said, everything, although the third act feels a little rushed at times, like everything does wrap up in a satisfying way.
Yeah.
So I think the reason it feels rushed maybe is also just because you want to spend more time in that world.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you get the whole setup, and it's just getting transported back, to something that I think a lot of people grew up on, but with a new story. So it's like you want to spend more time with it.
With Beetlejuice being the titular character in both films, they had a choice to make here. Now, one thing that a lot of sequels like to do is they like to take what you like about the first movie and just amplify it, give you more of that thing. And because this doubles down on its title character's name, that would suggest maybe we're going to get more Beetlejuice than we did in the first film, because in the first film, Beetlejuice is absent for a good majority of the film. He makes small appearances. They're very memorable, obviously. This is why the film's named after him. And they had the choice of, like, are we going to go the cartoon route, right? Like, we had the cartoon series back in the day that made Beetlejuice a main character alongside of Lydia, and they were, like, best friends in the afterlife and would go, she wasn't dead, but they would go into the afterlife together for, little quests and whatnot. And they could have went that route where we made Beetlejuice the main focus of the story. But once again, I don't know if Beetlejuice gets any more time in this movie than he does in the first. Maybe a little bit more, but not by much. I was really surprised by the restraint there. And, I think with Tim Burton is a director that obviously has a very, very iconic style to him.
Yeah.
And in recent years, he hasn't made anything that I've really had a love for in a long time. I don't know what his last great film for me was. Maybe Big Fish, maybe something beyond it that I'm forgetting at the top of my head right now. But, he kind of lost his magic for a bit for me, just for me personally. And this is easily the best film that he's put out in a while. And I feel like this is something that's been brewing in his head for a long time. And so he's kind of finally put it to screen. As far as like the sets and the costumes and the effects, this is like where I think the film really succeeds. It could have went the CGI route and really committed to pissing off its fans by not giving it that aesthetic that the first film has. Now, I'm not going to say this film is devoid of any CGI. Of course, it has CGI enhancements here and there, but I feel like they did use CGI in a way to make it look like either stop motion or whatever to emulate what we had gotten in the original film. So there's nothing like overtly, obviously CG. Everything feels fairly practical, even if it isn't. And I love that about it. The afterlife stuff that we get in this film feels just like the original.
So, just like it. And just like the original, too, this is going to be such a fun film to watch, to look at all of the, like, background, like, dead people that you, like, don't get to see the first time around. Which is one of my favorite parts. But I love the costumes on everybody. I think they're wonderful. Yeah. And the return to, is it Winter River? I think it's Winter River. They're the town.
I always forget what this town is called. I don't remember it being like prominent in the original film, like what the town's name is. But the return to that town was very nostalgic and kind of a deeper exploration of that town. We get some cool origins, which I was very excited about. I won't say anything more about that. Monica Bellucci's character is really cool, although her stuff is wrapped up fairly quickly for what's set up. So that's kind of a bummer, but I still really loved everything done with her. I mean, there's just so many things to talk about with the film. I feel like I could just kind of gloat and, about it for a while. Gloat, I don't think is the right word I was looking for. I was like, wait, I didn't make the fucking thing. But I would just have fawning praise for a lot of aspects of this. You can definitely point out a lot of like, see, that's the great thing about this is that the Easter eggs are there when you are looking for them. There are some obvious like things, and then there's other things where you're like, okay, like I was noticing little things, and I think there's definitely things that I missed. The film had some pretty good surprises too of where the story went and like what was happening in it. I was like, oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting for this, and that makes sense and cool.
Very cool, yeah.
The film I'd actually compare this to the most story-wise is Coco. There's some Coco aspects in here. That's all I'm going to say about it. But just a really cool film. And very happy as a Beetlejuice
very happy
lover.
Really excited to see it again. Our audience was fairly packed, and it was being received very well by everybody. There's a lot of reactions to things, and we saw some people after the fact that had dressed up like cosplayed as Beetlejuice or whatever, and so that was really cool to see. But really, really fun. I think that it's I hope that you watch it and love it, because this would be so sad to watch and hate, because I think it's just a great sequel.
I've seen a fair amount of reviews or opinions from friends and whatnot now. Mostly it's positive.
Good.
So I think most people will be positive on it, but there's going to be the naysayers. There's going to be the people, because I don't think there's a way to please people that are looking for something. You can never meet expectations, and by no means, when it comes to this film or any other legacy sequel or any sequel in general, just try your best to disconnect and not compare it to the original. That's just never going to happen. You have such nostalgia glasses on when it comes to that film. It's literally been like a family member for you for decades, and there's it's flawless in your mind, and nothing is ever going to be able to touch that film. It's just not possible. But if you want a fun revisiting of this world that doesn't feel like a rehash, it feels like something that has its own story in the world of Beetlejuice with the characters that you want. I will say this, probably my last thing here. Jeffrey Jones, of course, had some legal issues, we'll say, to be nice. And so therefore, he couldn't be in the film, but they wanted to include his character, and they really had to come up with a lot of different ways to include him without including him.
I thought it was very cleverly done.
And as far as the Maitlands go, this is addressed. So if you're worried or wondering what's going on with that, that's addressed. There is one aspect that I did not see addressed, and it is the very, very, very end of the original Beetlejuice. I was hoping for an explanation there, but I kind of just fill in my own blanks. He's magic. He can make literally anything happen, so I feel like
demon.
He can do anything to himself. So that's not really hard to explain why his head is no longer small. But other than that, great time.
Yeah, really, really great.
Definitely something that I will like. This is something I would love to throw on after I watch the original.
Yeah, totally.
It's going to be a good companion piece. It'll be good to have a second film to go to, and not just have like the cartoon as backup.
Yeah.
But this makes me want to revisit the cartoon. I own the whole thing on DVD.
Yeah, it makes me curious too.
I loved it growing up. I watched it a bunch when I was a kid. I had a great time with it. I watched some episodes when I bought the DVD. I didn't watch all of it. But it would be a super fun revisit, and maybe something we could do season by season in a review and some future episodes. So if you guys want to see that, let us know. And what did you think once you saw it? And that's that, I guess. Anything more on this one?
No, I think that's probably good for a spoiler-free one.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a spoiler discussion down the road.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right, guys. Well... See you in the afterlife.
Bye.